Welcome to the explainer. So, what if I told you that trying to force yourself to focus is actually, well, destroying your productivity? I know, it sounds crazy, right? But we all have this ingrained idea that getting deep work done is just a matter of sheer willpower. You know the drill. We chug that morning coffee, stare intensely at the screen, and just kind of hope that if we sit there long enough, the work will magically flow. But let's be totally honest with ourselves here. Searching for limitless productivity, it's not just about trying harder.
Okay, let's dive right in and talk about a frustration I know we have all felt at some point. Why is forced focus constantly failing us? Look, we've all been there. You're sitting at your desk, you've got 30, maybe 40 open browser tabs, and you're getting completely derailed by every single ping and notification. You try to wrangle your brain into submission, but honestly, it feels like pushing a massive boulder uphill. And the reason for this? It's because you are actively fighting your own biology. It's like trying to run a marathon without even checking if your body has fuel in the tank. You're relying on generic time management advice that frankly treats you like a robot. Well, today we are tossing all of that out the window to look at the biological secret that actually drives your alertness.
And that secret, it comes down to a really specific biological mechanism, your temperature trough, or what scientists call the temperature minimum. Basically, this is the absolute lowest point of your core body temperature during a full 24-hour cycle. And for the vast majority of us, this minimum happens roughly 2 hours before your average natural wake-up time. Now, you might be sitting there wondering, okay, why on earth do I care about my body temperature when I'm just trying to write a report or code a new feature? Well, here's the thing. According to neurobiology, your core temperature is basically the underlying metronome for your brain's energy levels. It literally dictates exactly when you are going to be the most alert. Let's look at how this builds across an average morning. Say you naturally wake up at 7 a.m. That means your temperature minimum hit around 5 a.m. Immediately after that absolute low point, your core body temperature starts this really steep climb. And this temperature rise, it is an incredible physiological trigger. It causes this initial, totally healthy release of cortisol in your body, which, by the way, is exactly what wakes you up. As your temperature keeps climbing on that steep slope throughout the morning, that cortisol is providing the literal physiological fuel for your alertness. So to get your absolute best work done, you want to catch the steepest portion of this slope. That generally lands about 4 to 6 hours after your temperature minimum. In our 7 a.m. wake-up example, that gives you this massive peak focus window right between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. So, the really crucial takeaway here is that you can precisely calculate your very own biological blueprint for peak productivity. We're doing this using 3 super simple steps. No more one-size-fits-all calendar blocking. Step 1, just log your natural wake-up time for a few days to figure out your average. Step 2, subtract exactly 2 hours from that average. Boom, you've pinpointed your temperature minimum. And step 3, count forward 4 to 6 hours from that minimum. And there it is. You have just found your golden window for cognitive performance. You're no longer just guessing when you should tackle your hardest tasks. You are mathematically placing them exactly when your physiology is engineered to support them.
Now, once you hit that peak window, you got to know how to ride the wave. And that brings us to something called ultradian rhythms. So, we've all heard of the circadian rhythm, right? The one that dictates our 24-hour sleep-wake cycle. But your brain also operates on shorter, 90-minute biological cycles. These are the ultradian rhythms, and they run constantly, all day and all night. Basically, every 90 minutes, your brain shifts from a lower state of alertness into a highly alert state, and then eventually fades back down again. The science is incredibly clear on this. Our brains are quite literally optimized for intense, dedicated work in 90-minute blocks. If you're trying to force yourself to focus for, say, 3 or 4 hours straight without taking a break, you're not being productive. You are literally just breaking your biological speed limit.
And this brings us to the ultimate goal of leveraging this biological cycle. It's about entering what neuroscientists refer to as the tunnel. Getting into the tunnel means you are successfully harnessing that peak temperature rise, catching the upward swing of your 90-minute ultradian wave, and just dropping into a state of absolute, uncompromising focus. I mean, this is where the magic happens, guys. This is where that deep, incredibly meaningful work is accomplished in a fraction of the time it would normally take if you were constantly distracted. But here's the catch. The tunnel doesn't just happen by accident. You have to actively construct the exact environment to protect that 90-minute block. First off, your phone must be absolutely off. I don't mean on vibrate, I don't mean airplane mode, I mean fully powered down. Literally lock it in a drawer if you have to. Second, turn on some low-level white noise. It turns out mixing all frequencies of sound randomly at a low volume actually shifts the brain into this optimal state for learning and workflow. And third, really pay attention to your physical posture. Your screen has to be positioned at eye level or even slightly higher. Because think about it, if you look down, your eyelids droop, right? And that physically signals your brainstem to increase sleepiness.
Looking slightly upward, though, triggers wakefulness. Combine all of this with fasting until around noon to elevate your adrenaline, and honestly, you have just built the ultimate productivity environment. Now, to make the tunnel work behaviorally, you've got to adopt this incredibly brilliant rule from the Zen to Done productivity system. It's simple. Do one task at a time without distractions. You absolutely must eliminate multitasking entirely. Fun fact, the human brain cannot actually multitask. It just can't. It only task switches incredibly fast, which just burns up precious neural energy every single time it bounces back and forth. So pick one task, preferably your most important one, and just lock in. If you get interrupted or say your brain suddenly panics and reminds you that you need to pay a bill, do not open a new browser tab. Just keep a physical notepad right next to you, jot that stray thought down, and immediately get back onto your single trajectory. Just think about the stark difference between how you used to work and how you are going to work from now on. The old way? That was forcing focus. Multitasking, fighting your natural fatigue, keeping your buzzing phone right there on the desk, and staring down at your laptop screen, practically making yourself fall asleep. I mean, it's a guaranteed recipe for burnout. But the new way? The new way is biological alignment. You're catching that temperature rise. You're single-tasking ruthlessly, blocking out the world with white noise and keeping that screen elevated. You're no longer fighting your body's natural state. Instead, you are aligning your heaviest cognitive loads with your body's absolute sharpest physiological peaks. But listen, here is the real catch, and you absolutely must pay attention to this part. You cannot live inside the tunnel. You just can't. Never forget that stepping away, taking breaks, and getting high-quality sleep are integral parts of this whole process. Rest is the fuel, folks. It is not the enemy. After a 90-minute ultradian cycle of really intense dopamine and adrenaline-fueled focus, your brain is depleted. It's like you wouldn't drive a race car at top speed for 1,000 miles without making a pit stop, right? Stepping away to recharge is exactly what keeps you in the game long-term. It refuels your nervous system so you can hit your next 90-minute peak with that exact same intensity. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one paradigm-shifting question. Are you just managing your time, or are you finally managing your biology? Because generic time management, it just moves colorful little blocks around on a calendar. But real, limitless productivity, the kind that makes you highly effective and just incredibly focused, that comes from completely abandoning the idea of brute force. It comes from timing your deep work to your own internal biological clock. Stop fighting your physiology and start leveraging it. Thank you so much for joining me today. I challenge you, figure out your temperature minimum tomorrow morning and just see what happens to your focus.